Before I begin my talk, I just want to, I had some really sad news. My daughter's partner of about 7 years, and they live in Costa Rica, and I guess he went snorkeling today on the other side and died. So I was like, he's only 42. Just, young man, and his family was just down there. It's just, it's just one of these really sad things, because to me, I have been snorkeling since I was little, and I have had so many incidents, and I've survived them all. He just didn't make it, So I wanted to, and I guess also, since we're on this subject, my friend Elad, who he was a director at Spirit Rock some years ago, and I spent maybe 10 years, and he was a psychotherapist in Palo Alto, and I worked with him in his difficult divorce and family and stuff. And he died last night. So, it's just, this is part of our lot, and it is sad, It's interesting when I've forgotten which of the disciples of the Buddha, Sariputra, when Sariputra died, they said the Buddha cried, and it didn't, in some ways didn't make sense, but, he didn't hold on to it. He just, it was just, truth is sad, it went through him, and Sariputra traveled with him for 40 years or so, so it was close, but, things happen. And I am glad for all the incidents that have happened to me. I just came back from Thailand, I had to go snorkeling. So, it's just my lot, but I've also seen some of the consequences, and this is one of them. This is from the Mahaparinirvana Sutta. Therefore, Ananda, be you lamps unto yourselves, be you a refuge to yourself. Betake yourself to no eternal external refuge. Hold fast to the truth as a lamp. Hold fast to the truth as a refuge. Look not for refuge in anyone besides yourself. And those, Ananda, who either now or after I am dead shall be a lamp unto themselves, shall betake themselves to this no external refuge, but holding fast to the truth of their lamp, and holding fast to the truth of their refuge, shall not look for refuge to anyone besides themselves. It is they who shall reach the very topmost heights, and they must be anxious to learn. So that's from the Buddha. Tonight, my talk is going to be on a talk I've been inspired by for years and years. And that first book I have out, the Taking the One Seat, this is kind of a part of that talk. And so this is one of my poems from the second book, The Scuffed Up Shoes. a long lineage, looking into the hidden landscape of our own underground world, talking endlessly about our own nothingness, of course, remembering this lineage, asking us to simply stay in our seat, no longer sneaking out the window, hoping that it would turn out better, only to remind ourselves the only small triumph here is staying in your seat. The great yogis of old surrendered to this great world, never giving up their seat, breaking the bonds of their storytelling, free at last. So a lot of this comes out of the kind of this awareness of that it's really this complement of starting with we have to collect ourselves on some means. And I know the tradition in Ajahn Chah and the Thai's tradition, they use the just simple refrain, Buddho, which translates as awakened. So it's just that thing of saying awakened, awakened. And somehow, of course, we have to add I to it, but they don't, you know. It's just awakened. And this is the process, you know. And it can be, you know, you can make it very complex because there's a lot of, as I said, there's literally, you know, there has been thousands of teachers through the centuries that have had enlightenment experiences and then become teachers, and those things have been recorded over the centuries, you know. I love the fact that, you know, in Burma there is one teacher who, a Vipassana teacher, who somehow he got enlightened just moving his arm, you know? So he ended up teaching the awareness like the walking meditation, except that it was just you stayed in your seat and you did your arm, which has been great for people I've taught who have been in wheelchairs, and can be very helpful, actually. But it's, you know, it's somewhat no different than the breath, because what it is we're just trying to find something to attend to. And as we attend to it, then there's certain processes that occur. And the first of them is just simply the quieting of the body. You know, and really I think the first day, even though could be a lot of restlessness and stuff going on, there's still the, you know, and I joked about, called it the train wreck, you know, it was because you go from movement into bing, you suddenly stop, and usually a lot of the things you've been up to are still there, they don't follow you, they just push you right along. And the practice is, you know, it's not like you have to force yourself into anything here. This is actual very natural process. It does take some time, and unfortunately we have put too much preciousness on time. And I think a lot of times some of the old teachers in Burma and Thailand and Tibet and India, what their lives were like, you know? I mean, it was really simple. They would walk, there may be ox carts, you know, but there wasn't anything that was in a hurry, not like, you know, I was trying to think of a name for that thing that we drive around in. You know, it's like the Jamaicans call it wristwatches, you know, arm engines, you know. And so sometimes I think our cars are something like that, is like an arm engine. But it also has a tendency to, you know, to change time so different, because it seems like there's never enough of it when we speed it up. When we slow it down, like those the monks up in the north, and both in Burma and Thailand, there was never any hurry about anything, you know. And life was singularity in experience. And ours is just the opposite. You know, we are just bombarded with information. It's just like getting this information from Costa Rica to Nevada City to me, all in the last hour or so. It's just, you know, this is where we're at with all this, you know. And it also means that we have to learn how. You know, we're a series of filter systems. And these filter systems the only way I can describe it is, you know, when you become, too much material comes in, we become afraid. When we become afraid, we contract. And therefore, that, when we spoke this morning, that intuitive sense is not there. There is simply survival process that's happening. When we slow it down and we come to a place where we can really be very simple, you know, and that's a rarity in our culture. It's not, this is something that, you know, I thought when I first came back from Asia back in ages ago now, first time, I thought, oh, this is, you know, it was great there. It's just, this doesn't translate into our culture, you know, and I was wrong. And then I met some of my friends from Asia, Joseph Goldstein and Jack Kornfield, etc. You know, and you know, they said, no, we have a mission to do with this, because this culture actually needs exactly what this is, even though it has to be translated on some level from that culture to this culture, you know. They're much, in many ways, a much different culture, but at the same time, we're all human beings. We have the same reactions to fear and excitement and love and care, and possessiveness and power, and it's kind of the other side of that. So this whole concept of one seat, that you always are where you are, right? It's not like if you're there, you're there. You're here, you're here. So there's always this chance that you can take what you have learned and translate it. And this really, the one seat is just that translation of the singularity that's necessary for the mind body, and the heart to align themselves. And then there's that, you could say intuition, you could say heartfulness, you could use the term wisdom. Those are all valid. But it took this practice of stopping, sitting down, feeling, and listening. That's the whole thing. I'm going to read this as I have these pieces from the Venerable Ajahn Chah, which I always like to read it took me many years to figure out how simple this all was. And he really held this practice in the simplest of ways. You will see that when the heart-mind is unattached, it is abiding in its normal state. When it stirs from its normal because of various thoughts and feelings, the process of thought construction takes place in which solutions are created. Learn to see through this process. Learn to see through this process. When the mind is stirred from normal, it leads away from right practice to one of the extremes of indulgence or aversion, thereby creating more illusion, more thought construction. Good or bad only arise in your mind. If you keep a watch on your mind, study this one your whole life, I guarantee you will never be bored. But we are stirred because of various thoughts and feelings. And here we have this really fundamental practice of turning the attention around. It has to turn itself around and ultimately look at itself. And this is also from Ajahn Chah. I'm just going to keep a few things going, then I'll riff off of it. As I see it, the mind is like a single point, the center of the universe. And mental states are like visitors who come to stay at this point for a short or a long time. Get to know these visitors. You will become familiar with the pictures they paint, the alluring stories they tell to entice you to follow them. And this is the whole thing. Entice you to follow them. Do not give up your seat. It is the only chair around. If you continue to occupy it unceasingly, greeting each guest as it comes, firmly establishing yourself in awareness, transforming your mind into the one who knows, the one who is awake, the visitors will eventually stop coming back. If you give them real attention, how many times can these visitors return? Speak with them here, and you will know every one of them well. Then your mind will at last be at peace. Very simple but profound. Greeting each guest as it comes. Sometimes it's a kind of a bag of sorrows. which I will have. And other times it'll be something, miraculous, like that sunset tonight, that just, can go on and on in your mind. That the colors and the air and the clouds, the water, the reflection, both. But it's just saying all these things arise, and they're not you. These are the causes and conditions, and the causes and conditions are they're so enticing, that we become enamored or mesmerized or entranced, or even ones we don't like. We can have a bad story that keeps it's like a broken record. It just keeps running, and we're going, how do we get off of this wheel? It's really not more complicated than that, except that this word delusion, it's so powerful, because through our senses of seeing and smelling and tasting and hearing, thinking and memory and fantasizing and planning, and we do all sorts of stuff, those are all things that are covering something much more fundamental. And it's really why we come here. We have to strip away or peel away, or dissolve, or somehow release or let go of so much over and over again. I think on this Earth planet, that's probably the most fundamental teaching, is somehow learning to let go. But letting go is not a something. It's a process that happens. And so a lot of times you have to live in the struggle of that process. And so it's not really, the letting go is not something that you did, or you want to do it, but you yourself cannot do it. And that's why I think in many ways better language is just to let it be, And whatever arises, if you let it be, and you see that there is a process that will happen, called letting go, but you don't do it. It's actually, if I could use the language, nature is going to do it, And you'll keep, we just keep, new ones come up again and again, Just go into the room and put one chair in the center. Take the seat in the center of the room. Open the door and the windows and see who comes to visit. And this is your practice being described. You will witness all kinds of scenes and actors, all kinds of temptations and stories, everything imaginable. Your only job is to stay in your seat. You will see it all arise and pass, and out of this, wisdom and understanding will come. So I like this description, of an empty room, which is really, you are the empty room. And you have to place, and this is our practice, are taking that one seat in the center of the room. Now, the problem is there's windows and doors. Traditionally like in the Tibetan, there are the five senses which pull us, and then there's a door that swings both ways, which is our mind. And there's constant stimulus that's coming, and putting on a great show, and we get enticed, and then we leave our chair and we go out through a window, and we get out there a ways and realize, oh, it wasn't anything, and suddenly we're back in the chair again. Well, this goes on and on and on, because we are constantly being enticed by sometimes just memories, particularly at retreats there where we're good at that, and they come, and a part of our process here is to make friends with them, that first one that Ajahn Chah talked about, greeting each guest as it comes. And sometimes that's a guest full of sorrows, and sometimes it's a guest full of wonder, and sometimes it's a magical guest. I like that one. It comes out of nowhere, But as we kind of learn to keep that one seat, to stay in the center of it, and see that our delusion is that somehow what appears at the windows or at the door will solve it, So we certainly have been doing this for, if I can say, many lives, of running out the window and the door. It's just how it's appeared and how it's happened. So we come here, and again, that simple teaching of greeting each guest, and again, there's a specific terminology there. It's a guest. It's come out of nowhere. Now, there may be karmic obvious causes and conditions, because this is all causes and conditions, that bring whatever experience to one of the windows or the door. And as we learn to know them, and that's the thing, we have to stay in our seat long enough. And I think, at the beginning of practice, I think you have to go out the windows and the doors pretty often, and start going, well, you know what? Sitting in the seat There wasn't any problem, you know? But when I took off and, you know, chased that rainbow and suddenly it vanished, what do I do with that, you know? And so suddenly there's this wisdom factor starts to happen and you say, oh, you know, maybe it's worth training. They talk about this as a mind-heart training, training myself to stay in the seat, you know. And it's actually what you're all doing, you know, is you're training yourself to just stay. Whatever arises. And sometimes, you know, it can be pretty rocky. Life isn't prescribed. It's lived through those 5 reflections of I have the nature to grow old. I have the nature to get sick. I have the nature to die. Whatever I cherish will be taken from me. My only possession are my actions. Sobering, but also give you reason to stay in your seat. You know, it's like, oh, okay. You know, if these are the reflections and kind of the rules of the road here, then the wisdom is just to stay in the seat and teach myself, you know, not to get lost, you know. Where's that? I'm telling you, it's great fun to observe closely how the mind works. This is, again, the Venerable Ajahn Chah. I see the mind as merely a single point. Mental states are like guests who come and visit this spot. Sometimes this person comes to call. Sometimes that person pays a visit. They come to the visitor center. Training the mind to watch and know them all with eyes of alert awareness. This is how you care for your heart and mind. This is the Buddha's firm and unshakable awareness that watches over and protects the mind-heart. You're sitting right here. Since the moment you emerged from the womb, every visitor that has ever come to call has arrived right here. No matter how often they come, they always come to the same spot, right here. Knowing them all, the Buddha's awareness sits firm and unshakable. Simply know who the guests are as they arrive. Once they've dropped by, they will find there is only one chair. And as long as you're occupying it, they will have nowhere to sit down. Next time they come, there will also be no chair for free. No matter how many times these chattering visitors show up, they always meet the same person sitting in the same spot. There is only one seat, and you're sitting in it. How long do you think they will continue to put up with this situation? Everyone and everything you've ever known since you began to experience the world will come for a visit. Simply observing and being aware right here is enough to see the entirety of the Dhamma. So that's what we're doing. We're working away at it, you know. You know, it is the psychology of Dharma, which is quite a specific psychology. The last one here. The visitors to your chair consists of images, plans, memories, dreams, thoughts, emotions, and many others. Once you acknowledge their presence, they will be happy to leave. However, you have to be sure to notice them and not let them take over the conversation going on in your mind. This is a big lesson. However, you have to be sure to notice them and not let them take over the conversation going on in your mind. How will you sit silently with these visitors? Do you watch them come and go, or do you try to entertain them? Sound familiar? No. So this mind training, I mean, they call it mind training, but it's really mind-heart training. Is unfortunately, it takes a bit of effort. You know, you don't get it the first round, you don't get the second round, you don't get the third round. But you begin to recognize the importance of sitting in that one seat and not needing to, you know, sometimes I think of it as time travel. We follow some story and off we go, and then at some point we remember. And what's amazing, the moment we remember, we're back in our seat. It's not like, that's why I call it time travel, because going, it can be very laborious. But when you wake up, you return immediately. And then you can choose to stay. And that's really what I'm trying to emphasize here is can you, you know, how can you just give yourself permission to stay? But you have to know the visitors. And a lot of times the visitors come as old stories with emotional hooks that we think somehow we can outdo them, I think, you know? But the truth is, we just have to sometimes sit through them, you know? And unfortunately, there's no miracle here for that. There is just the willingness to stay in that seat and to keep the mind aware that there is an enticement to a visitor. And as we do that, then the idea of getting caught becomes less and less necessary, you know, because it always comes back to the same place. You're always right here anyway, you know. And I think as you begin to recognize the power of these visitors, and you think they're more powerful than they really are. Because really, the one that has the power is you. And it's this practice of lining up the mind, the body, and the heart. And then ultimately, the heart knows. You know, we use the word intuition. Well, what is it exactly? Well, it's getting out of your way and being able to listen to something I was thinking of, this is bad, I was thinking of record 78 and 33 and a third, you know, that there are different speeds, you know, and we learn to recognize those different speeds, so that we actually don't leave our seat. We do have the habit of entertainment, entertaining our. I'm sure while you were here, you entertained certain things. It's kind of natural. You know, I like the entertainment of enlightenment. I think that's a good one. You know, why not? You know. But enlightenment is not something that's, you know, it's not so far away. Because enlightenment is it's when the mind no longer buys or believes in any of the visitors, you know. And that's why it takes a bit of time to, it's like a lot of rehearsals that go on. At some point, when the mind and heart and body line up in this, there is a wisdom or a natural knowing. And Ajahn Chah he uses the word the knower. And that we're all working on teaching ourselves that we have this knower. And this knower is intelligent. It knows the difference between right and wrong, and the sense of why we have these simple precepts to protect not just ourselves, but the community. But it's more than that, you know, because it's there as a kind of sanity. Ajahn Amaro used to talk about it as, it was like you were going along a mountain path, and these precepts were like little lights along the way so you wouldn't fall over the side. I think a good description of that, you know. And then, as the mind settles down and allows the body to be known, then the heart naturally, first of all, the heart has to care for itself. So from this point of view, you are the most important one out there. And, sometimes I've heard this said, but, metta seems like some of it just so self-indulgent on some level. But here's the query, is if you can learn to love yourself enough where you have the humility and the interest, then you also have that sense of other. And so to care for oneself is also to care for other. And without caring for oneself, it's easy in our culture. I know when I first thought, there is that conventional love that we all learn from and work with, But there's also a larger, something in a different context. In that love, we have it, but we have to have engaged ourselves with it, so that then it no longer is seeing itself, but it's seeing the world. So it's kind of a paradoxical thing where you have to start by turning the attention around to oneself, and then in a sense it's not recycled, it's simply reverses itself, and so what seemed like very selfish thing actually turns itself into its opposite. And I'm not saying, because I think of Mother Teresa and some others, that, they found their way through their really abandoning the self. And ours is more waking up to the self. But it all ends up in the same place, There's no two ways. There's just one way. So I'm thinking that's what I have for you tonight. And please, wake up. Stay awake. Stay in your seat. It's the only one that you have, So, thank you.